Thank you for viewing this on Georgie's video. Georgie Clark, brother Georgie Clark. Zooming in for a close-up of the captain drinking a margarita before he hits his flight.
That was including 3 pairs of shoes. His big shoes. 2 full pairs of mine. Travis Ice curler set. Iron. All in the bottom. Georgia, are those the church cameras?
LOT Polish Airlines deelt mee dat haar vluchtnummer 232 met bestemming Warschau van uitgang
Ladies and gentlemen, you can see the city of Tel Aviv. Make sure that your seatbelts are securely fastened. Thank you.
Everybody smile. How's everybody doing? Good. Y'all just keep walking this way and we'll shake hands and read after you get you guys out of here. Thank you.
Now smile. I know y'all had a great trip.
My goodness. Hello! How are y'all?
You got
Kevin?
Sure, real early, Mark.
Hey, Kevin.
I wouldn't miss it.
See ya.
Hey.
Kevin.
We're pretty sight.
Yeah.
Look at that.
I made it. Good to see y'all. Glad to see you. Good.
Y'all having fun yet? Who is that? Who is that guy?
I'll take you a little bit. Hey, you didn't bring the man? If you look over the video.
If you look careful, you can find along the seashore little snails, and they are purple color, and they used to squeeze it slightly similar to the color of your shirt. I would say, but very beautiful color. So we used to collect them, squeeze them on a nice clean of white linen, and the color is really staying, it doesn't come off. And in the old days, it was considered to be very expensive color. So.
Those Romans were pretty smart characters, weren't they?
Well, they were excellent builders, excellent builders. And their technology, they really did a beautiful job. We are going now to the Roman theater. Place where they used to play or have chariot racing. You saw the movie Ben-Hur. Can you see right over here? So that's a place for the chariot racing. In Ben-Hur it's being presented very nice, having the chariots and run them all the way around. אהרון, כשאני מסביר על משהו, כדאי שקצת תעיד, אז אנשים גם יכולים לראות את זה, בסדר? And then the city itself was abandoned and destroyed, or abandoned in the 8th century, 9th century, but in the 12th century, people came here from Europe. They were called the Crusaders. You all remember Richard Lionheart and the other stories. So they fortified and built a small part over here. Can you see? So this is only a small part of Caesarea which was rebuilt by the Crusaders because it's on the seashore, and they built here a little seaport. So this is the fortified part of Caesarea from the Crusader time. In other words, when we speak about Caesarea, we always speak about the time of Paul, right? Paul was here in Caesarea, time of Pontius Pilate.
So you say the Crusaders came in the 8th century and built it?
No, they came here in the 12th century.
12th century.
And you see the moat, right?
Right.
The whole hill over here was removed, and they found over here a lot of ruins from the Roman time. They found here a stadium. So, in the Roman city you have the public buildings, you have the big place called the Hippodrome for chariot racing. That's quite a long space. Then you have the stadium. And then you have also the Roman theater Colosseum was not found yet. You know, Colosseum is the place where they used to have fighting between people and beasts, right? Or between themselves. If you saw a movie called Spartacus, or maybe you heard about it, I mean, someone used to fight against someone else. So this was not found yet. But what we're going to see now is the Roman theater. Okay, we'll get now off the bus and go into the city of Caesarea. A little bit closer over here. You know, the Bible is very exciting, and sometimes you have a discussion with someone, he will tell you, well, we know that the book was written 2,000 years ago, maybe 3,000 years ago, maybe. And how do you know that these events really happened, right? How do you know about, let's say, a fellow by the name of Pontius Pilate? Because in historical documents, his name is maybe mentioned only once, or even not even once. So when they did some excavation and they dug here underground, they made some very exciting discovery. They found a stone laying on the ground. By the way, that's not the original stone, it's a copy. And on the stone, two names which are written over here. One name is, can you read it? It said over here, Tiberium. And the next line is called Ves Pilatus. In other words, here you have the name of this Roman procurator, governor, whose name was called Pilate, right? And he was in the time of Tiberius Caesar. So here you have an evidence that no one can deny it, right? The name was found over here from that time. In other words, it's almost 2,000 years old. Since this stone is very expensive or very important, the stone is not here, it's the copy, and the original stone is in the Israeli Museum in Jerusalem. But the name was found. I want to add something to it, you know. Every one of us speaks about David, right? King David. In historical documents, the name is not mentioned. And someone can come to you and say, well, it's very nice, I mean, it's very exciting, David killed Goliath and the rest of it. But how do you know that this man really did exist, right? And then you stand for one moment and say, oh, I lift my hand, I'm not going to argue with you because I really don't know except the Bible, right? And this man said, well, so don't be afraid. Never give up, never lift up your hands, as we say in Hebrew. But you can tell him that we had a very exciting discovery done in the northern part of Israel, in a place called Dan. Remember, I told you the Danites moved to a different place. And in this dig, excavation, they found a gate. They started to clean the gate and they found there flat stones. And one of the stones was turned upside down, and on the stone said very clear in Old Hebrew, and this is the territory to the house of David. So by now you can say to the man, you don't like it, but it's written also on a document that was found over here. In other words, we know that whatever is written in the Bible happened, right? But sometimes, you know, you have the argument with people who will come and tell you. I remember when I was in school, my professor sometimes said, well, we really don't know, and the theory this way. Today we know the name of David was found written on a stone, dated back to about the time of David, which is almost 3,000 years ago. It was found in Tel Dan. And this way I can give you many, many more examples. Tomorrow, when we are going to be near the Sea of Galilee, I will show you some very exciting discoveries which were done only in the 4 last years. Some of them are really not yet even published and known to the public. So here you have a beautiful evidence, a stone which speaks about Tiberius and Pilatus. Now our tour is not only going to be based on relics, but sometimes when you look at the trees, right? This tree over here is called tamarisk. You remember where the tamarisk is mentioned in the Bible? Tamarisk. It said in the Bible, in the book of Genesis, and Abraham planted a tamarisk, right? So this is the tamarisk tree which grows in the desert. If you take the leaf and you break them, it's a little bit salty. It's a very typical plant that you have in the desert. So the tamarisk. We stopped over here because we are going to move from here to the Roman theater, where they used to have play and show in the Roman time. And we'll do some reading which has to do with the event that happened here in the city of Caesarea. By the way, the Bible speaks about few Caesareas, right? You remember that Jesus went to a place called Caesarea Philippi, right? Which is in the northern region of the country. This one is called Caesarea on the seashore, Caesarea Maritima, maritime on the seashore, okay? And here in Caesarea we are going to discuss two major events. One, Cornelius, who was a Roman centurion, a commander of 100 men, who got in touch with Peter, was converted. So that's really the first big official report that someone who's a non-Jew came from Italy, was converted by Peter, right? The second event is the story about Paul. Paul, who traveled, came to Caesarea. From here he went to Jerusalem. He was arrested and brought into custody, or under custody, to Caesarea. And then they shipped him to Rome because they say, we don't really want to start any difficulties with the man because he's a Roman citizen. It's a very interesting description, how he took a boat, went across the ocean or the Mediterranean, and finally got to Rome. He was finally executed in Rome. So the story is about Cornelius and Paul that happened here in Caesarea. Anyone has any questions? Everyone's so quiet, so do I figure out that you understand? Or so let's move on to the Roman theater. That's called the aloe vera, can you see? And if you put it on your hands, on your face, it can be the best sunscreen. Here. It's a little bit bitter, but you don't have to lick it. We have to find a place.
So this is where the Christians...
No.
This is not where they...
It was a Roman theater.
Okay.
The Christians were put into lines in a Colosseum, which is amphitheater. Okay, we can sit over here. It's not the best one. You know what we'll do? We should sit there so we don't have to be disturbed by the sun.
So they actually use this side.
Okay, let's sit over here. This was used only for show.
Okay, just...
In other words, they used to have perform a show. The actors were only male, no female. And if it was a tragedy, they used to have a mask on their face that was crying.
Okay.
If it was a comedy, I mean, the mask was smiling.
Okay.
Only in one occasion, after Jerusalem was destroyed, they had so many slaves, which they want to get rid of, many of them. So they put them down to fight once against the other one. But otherwise, different purpose. Okay, folks, come here and you can sit on these seats. Do you like to stand over here down in the...
Okay, does everybody understand where we're at? Does anybody understand where we're at? Okay. No, not a coliseum, a theater. A theater. I had a misconcept about that, Richard. It's good that you said that because I had a misconcept about it. But it's like you said, this is where actors and only male actors performed. And so it's not to be mistaken as like an amphitheater. You want me to read these passages of scripture here?
Yes.
Gideon? Tell you, how about if I read first, 10th chapter?
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
But just pick certain kind of reference. And
Right, okay. I'm gonna pick several references from the Bible just to kind of orient you with some of the events that happened here. Most of you are familiar with these stories, so I'm not going to read a whole lot. Then called he them in and lodged them, and on the morrow Peter went away with them, and certain brethren from Joppa accompanied him. And the morrow after they entered into Caesarea, and Cornelius waited for them, and had called together his kinsmen and near friends. And as Peter was coming in, Cornelius met him and fell down at his feet and worshipped him. But Peter took him up, saying, Stand up, I myself also am a man. And anyway, it goes on to tell the story, and as you know, this is when the gospel came to the Gentiles. This is when the door was open for us. These were the first Gentiles. You remember the vision that the Lord had given Peter where the food came down on the housetop? 24th chapter of the book of Acts. The accusers of Paul are speaking here. For we have found this man a pestilent fellow and a mover of sedition among all the Jews throughout the world, and a ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes, who also hath gone about to profane the temple, whom we took and would have judged according to our law. But the chief captain Lysias came upon us, and with great violence took him away out of our hands, commanding his accusers to come unto thee, by examining of whom thyself mayest take knowledge of all these things whereof we accuse him. And the Jews also assented, saying that these things were so. I want you to listen to Paul's response here. Then Paul, after that, the governor had beckoned unto him to speak, answered, For as much as I know that thou hast been of many years a judge unto his nation, I do the more cheerfully answer for myself. Because that thou mayest understand that there are yet but 12 days since I went up to Jerusalem for to worship, and they neither found me in the temple disputing with any man, neither raising up the people, neither in the synagogues nor in the city. Neither can they prove the things whereof they now accuse me. But this I confess unto thee, that after the way which they call heresy, so worship I the God of my fathers, believing all things which are written in the law and in the prophets. And you just hear the wisdom, you know, as Paul responds. If you'll notice, he first entreated Felix there to be a wise man and a man of good judgment before he replied.
Okay, do we have anybody who would like to sing and can go on the stage and sing a little bit so we can enjoy the excellent job that the Romans did?
Dale, how about y'all going down and singing that? They put old Paul in the Roman jail, if you believe. The one they put Paul in the Roman jail, if you believe.
Go right ahead. Well, going in.
All right, come on down here. Go down on the stage.
Oh,
Come on, come on. Paulette, where you at?
Right here.
Go down there.
I don't know that song.
Okay, well you can learn it. You can hum. Gracie, Beth, Valerie, Christy. Any other singers that want to volunteer?
Can you give them a hand there, brother? You can go down, but just watch out because the last step is a little bit high.
I'll sing with y'all from up here.
no. You come down here with me.
Yeah, come up there on the stage and let's hear it. Okay, look, everybody join in now when they get to the chorus. Take it in.
Nobody there could know their death, but when they prayed, they found that God was on their side and they'll have souls. One open wide, if you believe, you shall receive. There's not a trouble or care the good Lord can't relieve. Whoa, He is just the same today. All you have to do is trust and believe. You must believe. When David stood before Goliath with his sling, Goliath laughed at such a puny little thing. But David knew that faith in God would stand the test. He flung the rock. God did the rest. If you believe, you shall receive. There's not a trouble or care the good Lord can't relieve. Whoa, He is just the same today. All you gotta do is trust and And when they threw old Daniel in the lion's den, nobody thought that there was any hope for him. But all night long, those lions never took a bite. God took away their appetite.
If you believe, you shall receive.
There's not a trouble or care the good Lord can't relieve. Whoa, 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 He is just the same today. All you gotta do is trust and believe. You must believe.
Okay.
Thank you.
When I used to come here as a child, we found here plenty of old coins and other type of stuff.
Is that right? A lot of Roman coins.
I have plenty of old stuff which I found these places.
Pretty cool. That's just kind of weird. It's hard. Hey, Val.
Seven, okay? Or Song of Solomon, first chapter. I believe it's 12 and so on. So that will add quite a lot. And then Caesarea, and you say Caesarea mentioned in the book of Acts, chapter 8 or chapter 10, and then chapter 21, and so on and so on. So when you come home, you're going to get a better understanding of the whole picture. And that's very good, because what we are doing now, we are basically doing a very intensive Bible course. And you know, this too, if it's going to work properly, it's going to be equivalent probably a whole course in Bible for 2 years. We are going to read a lot, understand, and be introduced to many of the questions. Did you have a map? Population is about 5.6 million. We produce about 250% of the food that we need. In other words, see? So when you really speak about the Bible, right, it's said in the book of Amos, book of Isaiah, and other prophets, in the future, you know, it will be so much food, so you'll not be able to consume all the food, right? Remember, it said, and the cheese will have, the milk will have to turn to be cheese, right? Amos. And that's why we call the country land of milk and money. But apropos, a little story. In the end of the 19th century, an American famous writer came to this country. And he joined an expedition going from Damascus to Jerusalem. You know, you can imagine that time, 110 years ago, it was not very easy to travel. I mean, they did not have these buses. And he used to send ever so often a letter, or in that time they did not have the fax machine, but they used to have, you know, the like, you know, this kind of what do you call it? Telegraph. For our time, and he used to telegraph his paper in the States. So he said in his reports every week, he said, I don't understand how this country, which was desert, when he came it was desert, right, can be called the land of milk and honey. And I believe that there's a mistake. I mean, I don't believe really the story. The man died a long time ago, and you all know him by name. His name was called Mark Twain. We say today, we wish that man could open his eyes for a few minutes and see how wrong he was when he said, I mean, because God said the country will turn to be paradise. Plenty of food, right? And it's a fact today that we produce much more food than we need, except grain. I mean, we can produce the grain, but you know, in farming you also figure out what brings you more income, right? So if you plant a field with wheat, or you can have on the same field fruit trees. See the trees over here? I don't know if you have, I'm sure that you don't have it in Georgia because I never saw them and it's too cold. That's called lockwood. If you ever go to Florida, it's yellow.
Little bitty ones.
and the size gets up to this, like, big eggs of a dove. In the center you have some very big seeds. You probably consider Concord.
Yeah.
Concord is citrus family, and this is lockwood. It's two different stories. The birds like it very much, and that's why they put the nets. Can you see? And then you see also peaches. These are apricots. And we like to show you that we have some traffic jams on the road, right? So all the... It's a little bit, short, long day.
Squeeze a lot in.
But you come here for a short time, we like to show the most. Go, okay.
Here. Can you do that?
Where's David?
I'm here.
David is on my left side, right?
Yeah.
They say Angel Gabriel and Angel Michael.
Yeah.
Angel Gabriel. Well, generally, when we drive in the country, people always ask themselves, what is the Tell like mound, okay? It's a hill, but it was not created, it was man-made. How did it happen? People in some early times, maybe 3,000-4,000 years ago, even a little bit before maybe the time of Abraham, when we speak about the early times of the Bible, came to this place. And since there is water, you remember when we left the major road, you notice this big eucalyptus tree. Eucalyptus is a good indication that there is a lot of water. So there's water, right? People could come in, get a jar of water. Big valley, right? In the valley you can plant wheat, barley, oats. You can raise cattle. So you have now water and you have food, right? Then there is also a big crossroad, because we could have driven from Caesarea cross country and come to this place. It's a very important passage in the Bible, in the book of Kings, in the Bible, in the book of Judges. Judges comes in 1st King. It speaks about big battles that took part in this area, right? Deborah fought with Sisera in this valley. King of Jerusalem, King Ozias, went to fight here against Pharaoh Necho, right? He was killed in the battle, and his body was carried to Jerusalem. His son was taken as a hostess, or as a kind of prisoner of war to Egypt. And then, of course, the very important one, which we're going to read outside, and that's a very famous reference that we read in the book of Revelation. But people came to this place, built here a level, right? Houses surrounded by wall. Then something happened. It could be a big fire, like we have today, sometimes very big fires. It could be an earthquake. It could be that maybe an enemy came in and just knocked down the houses. They were not strong houses like today, but they were made from bricks made of mud. And this city was destroyed and left a level maybe of about 1 foot of dirt. And then people came and built another city. They say, we have food, we have water, and then build another city. It was destroyed, another level was built on top. In Megiddo, you have from the foot to the top 22 levels of civilization. See, what happened? Open. Huh? Oh, I know that you press one of the buttons. Well, here you can see a cross section. Can you see? And you're going to sit on the tail with different levels of civilization. People always read the Bible, right? In the beginning of the century, a fellow lived in a place called Haifa, not very far from here. German man, and said, I like to know where Megiddo is. Because Megiddo is the same place that you call Armageddon, right? The hill of Megiddo. And he was riding on his horse, probably the Bible in his hand, and say, where's Megiddo, where's Megiddo? Finally, he came to this pile of dirt, right? Size-wise, it's about 20 acres. And he asked the local people, it was a small community living on top, what's the name of the place? So they told him, that's called Mensi. So Mensi, Megiddo, maybe. And he asked the people, so what do you have here? And they say, well, we know that people used to live here in the old days. And they did show him a lot of pieces of pottery. We call them shards, handle of jars, pieces of pottery. And he said, oh, that may fit into the description in the Bible of Megiddo. He started to excavate. The farmers were very happy, they helped him. And he found a lot of ruins of foundational buildings and say, I identify the place as Megiddo. And he was right. Later on, American group came here in 1925. Some maybe 15 years afterwards, start to excavate the place, and they find here very exciting ruins, all kind of artifacts, altars. But the very interesting discovery was the area that you see right over here, stables. Stables from the time of maybe Solomon. You know, Solomon used to buy horses in the land of the Hittites, bring them down to Egypt. The horses were treated so they couldn't reproduce. But why do you need a horse? Because the horse will pull a chariot, right? A chariot needs 3 horses. So if these kings had a lot of chariots, they had to buy many horses. You remember Pharaoh when he chased the Israelites? So it was common to buy horses, sell them down to Egypt, and they used to make a big business. After Solomon, not very long time afterwards, it was another king whose name was King Ahab. And I hope that I'll be able to show you his capital. And King Ahab, we know it from other documents, had a fleet of 2,200 chariots. Multiplied in 3, you speak about almost 7,000 horses, right? And if you need also replacement, right, the horse sometimes break a leg, you can't use it. So he needed a lot of horses. In this area are the stables, can you see? They did not find the stables, they only found the foundation because the buildings were destroyed. So we don't really know if the stables dates to the time of Solomon or to the time of Ahab. I'm really not going to go into all kind of details in archaeology, but what I like to tell you is how you can take this book, right? And I told you I'm going to use the Bible as the main guidebook. And today, if you don't know the Bible, don't even go to study archaeology. Don't even go to that. This is the cornerstone to archaeology. We know it has some things which are much more important, but if someone comes to me and I take groups of people who are not always minded Bible, even Americans, and by the end of the tour they tell me, you must be probably a very important salesman of Bible. I said to them, that's right. Some say, we know, that's why your name is Gideon. But anyhow, no, it's amazing to see, because I took some of you vice presidents and I took some other dignitaries, and I always use the Bible, and people really, after a while, they start to listen to you this way, and they say, we must go home and study Bible. And I say, now I'm very happy. The book will be more spread around. Anyhow, stables, we have here a city gate. You go to Hazor, you go to Gezer, the 3 major cities, the same gate. I mean, you don't see the whole gate, but you see the foundation of it. When this was discovered, the archaeologists who did the job came to the workers and told them, if you excavate this way, you're going to find the city gate. So they maybe, when he turned back, he said, the man must be a little bit, you know what this means. They start to excavate, but he paid them the salary, so you don't say anything against your boss. And after 2 months of excavation, they found the gate that he told them. So one of them came to me and said, Professor, how did you know what we're going to find underground? He said, very simple, open the book. And if it said that Solomon fortified Hazor in the Galilee, and Gezer near Jerusalem, and Megiddo, it should be that this gate that was in Gezer and in other place should be also here. Very simple, I mean, you don't have to be a big genius, right? So the city gate, stables, a big hall, the grain silo, and a water supply system. See the hall? Right there on the right side next to you. Can you see? Mm-hmm. What we're going to do, we are here in this museum. We're going to walk this way to the grain silo, stables area, and then down through the water shaft, and we'll come on the other side where this young man stands where David stands. That's where we're going to get out. The bus is going to wait for us over here. Now, some of you may decide not to take the whole walking tour. So after we go out, we're sitting under the tree. We're going to read some reference. We'll split into two groups. Those who don't want to take the walking tour will go back to the bus. And the rest will come with me. We're going to go on the tail, go to the water supply system, get out on the other side. It can be done, a little bit of effort. Okay? So let's now go outside. We'll stand under the tree. We'll do some reading from the Bible. You have any questions? People ask me the name of this tree. I'll give you a little clue. He fed himself with this type of fruit from the tree. What did you say?
Locust tree.
Very good, very good. What's your name?
Sharon, Rose of Sharon.
Rose of Sharon. In German, if you meet German people, it's called St. Johannes Brot. Means St. John's bread. You know, Brot is bread, Johannes is John. But there are two types. This one is a male tree, and you know male are not very good, only female, right? They carry the fruit. So you can see over here the male flowers, right? It will never carry fruit, but if you will behave properly, I will try to show you, and you will be able to pick the long black beans, and they are very tasty, and they have on them little drops of honey. So when the Bible said that he fed himself, you know, with locust and honey, there's the fruit. You see, as kids we used to eat it quite a lot, but we really came over here because I would like to do the readings of the Battle of Armageddon, and I didn't want to mention, but if you're going to be good, we'll be able to see the Spring of Gideon, which is a very important place. Shall we read the two reference?
Yeah, but before I read this, I also want to say, now you know that John didn't eat grasshoppers. A lot of people think that when they say locust, it's a concept that a lot of people think he ate grasshoppers. Okay, first we're going to read over in the 16th verse. And he gathered them together into a place called, in the Hebrew tongue, Armageddon. And the seventh angel poured out his vial into the air, and there came a great voice out of the temple of heaven from the throne, saying, "It is done." And there were voices and thunders and lightnings, and there was a great earthquake, such as was not since men were upon the earth, so mighty an earthquake and so great. And the great city was divided into three parts, and the cities of the nations fell, and the great Babylon came in remembrance before God, to give unto her the cup of the wrath of the fierceness of his wrath. And every island fled away, and the mountains were not found. And there fell upon men a great hail out of heaven, every stone about the weight of a talent. And men blasphemed God because of the plague of the hail, for the plague thereof was exceeding great.
You know what, that will be enough, because... Okay. So, it really refers into this big valley that you see over here. The valley is named after the city, and it's very common in the time of the Bible that a place will be named after a city, right? Megiddo, Valley of Armageddon, or we call it in Hebrew Megiddo, the Valley of Megiddo. Valley of Jezreel, because there is another place called Jezreel. Samaria, the city of Samaria, the whole area is called Samaria, right? Sea of Galilee, the whole region of Galilee, or we call it Lake Kinneret because of the place. So it's very common. Now, we are going to split over here. Those that don't want to take the walking tour will go back to the bus. Who does not want to join us on the walking tour? Okay, so you go on the bus with Willie. You take them, put them on the bus, and meet us on the other side. The bus driver will know where, okay? The rest will come with me. I promise you that by the end of the tour you'll all get into good physical shape. But anyhow,
Little one.
the visibility is not the best one. We are now standing on the side of the plains of Jezreel, Valley of Armageddon. Remember, you only see a small part of the valley, and I will take you later on to see other parts of it. Right here were the gates. One city was built, the gate was destroyed, another city, and so it accumulated into about 22 different levels of civilization. Gate is very important, and I can use many references in the Bible, right? The judge will sit in the gate, right? When the Israelites went to fight against the Philistines, this very famous man, his name was Eli, the high priest, did sit in the gate, and he was waiting to hear the news from the battlefield, right? When the men came running from the battle, and Eli said, "What are the news?" And the man, you could tell that it's bad news. He said, "Children of Israel got defeated." And then he said, "Your two sons were killed in the battle." And then he knew that the worst one is going to come. And he said to him, and the Ark of Covenant was captured, right? And by that moment, the old man fell off his chair, break his neck. So in other words, he was waiting at the city gate, the judge, the leader sitting in the city gate. Saul was killed on Mount Gilboa, and I'm going to take you near Mount Gilboa. Abner, the chief of Saul's army, came to David afterwards, and he told him, "David, we know that you are anointed, you have to be the king, right?" And they had some discussion. Abner left David. Paul shake a hand and say, "I'm very happy to know that you know that I'm the king." And then when he went out, Joab met him, pulled him on the side of the gate, stabbed him with a knife. And he said, "How was Abner killed? Like one of the criminals." Gate. And I can give you many more examples of the city gate. So that's only one part. The other part is missing. The city gate of Megiddo. The plains of Megiddo, we are now on the hills of Manasseh. That's basically the beginning of Mount Carmel. Ahead of us are the mountains of the Galilee. Okay. Well, first of all, beyond us, you can see a date. You can see that fruit, right? But these are not very good dates. You can eat them. They're very sweet, but quality-wise, it's not the best dates. See, that's how it grows on the tree. A family came one day from Nazareth, and they were a husband and his wife, right? And she was pregnant. And then when they came to the inn was crowded. I mean, there was no space in the inn. So the innkeeper told them, "You can go downstairs. It's nice, warm there. The animals are living downstairs." She was already in the pain. And she delivered the baby, and the baby was put in a manger, right? So that's a manger. I know that you look at me and say what you're speaking about, but in this country, we don't have timber, right? In America, I saw the trees are so big and they scratch the heaven maybe. Here there are little trees, and we don't have timber, so you have to make it from stone, right? I mean, wood was used to make plowshares, handles for tools, but when it came to this manger, I mean, you take a limestone with a chisel and make a manger. So that's a manger. Similar maybe to the one that the baby was put in. Here in Megiddo, because there were stables where they kept horses, remember? They had many of these mangers found in Megiddo. So that's an example of a manger. If you like to take a picture or you go home, I know that people are going to say, well, it's not made of wood, but that's how they used to make mangers in this country. And again, this is not the one in which the baby was put in, but it's an example of a manger. Because sometimes people come to me and they say, we saw in Megiddo the manger, you know. What are we looking at?
Huh?
What do you think this was?
I don't know. Grain silo.
Grain silo. You know, anyone of you which is a farmer knows a little bit, you know that you can keep grain but every so often you should ventilate the grain. Otherwise,
Ferment.
it's going to start to get, you know, all kind of bacteria and fungus, and it's decay. So that's a grain silo, can you see? Probably they went down, put the basket with grain, and it's a big valley, right? Even today, it's very fertile land. And then they had the roof to cover it. So if the city is under siege, you have grain, and you have water, and I'm going to show you where the emergency tunnel was done. You can really survive here for a long time. So that's a grain silo of Megiddo. From here you have a better look on the valley. It's not the whole valley, but part of it. So the grain silo of Megiddo, remember we saw it on the model, right? The stables don't exist anymore. They found foundation. But the capital of Ahab is Jezreel, and we are going to see the city of Jezreel. You remember when they had the very famous experiment with Elijah on Mount Carmel, and Ahab asked Elijah, can you do something? And he did pray. And he told him, you see the little cloud coming from the west, and ran in front of him all the way to Jezreel. These are called the hills of Manasseh.
All these are the hills of Manasseh.
Which is really part of Mount Carmel, because remember when we came from between the mountain? So this is Mount Carmel. Look here, how many pieces of pottery, can you see?
Okay. Say one thing.
That's an opening of a jar.
Pottery for
Here, can you see?
Those are the remains of the containers and all.
Oh, look here, can you see? Look here, can you see?
Piece there.
But that's not pottery. It's probably a stone. Here, David. When we are going down, what we are really going to do is to walk through a hole, right? A man-made hole in the ground. Today, when we look for water, we call the company, I don't know how you do it in America, and we say, we need to drill a well in our court. And he said, okay, fine. And he puts down the machine, and they drill in about 100 feet, they may find water. They did not have drilling machines, and therefore they had to do it by hand. And by the end of this, on the staircase, you're going to walk on a wooden bridge, and then you will be at the water table. And then by the end of this bridge, you are going to see a little bit of water. There is not so much, because in the old days it was clean. If you are going to clean it, it will be enough water to supply the needs for this town. And by the way, they did not have so many people like today. You speak about New York City, right? You speak about maybe 10 million. They did not have very big cities, but big enough for the whole area. So we're going down, getting to a wooden bridge, and by the end of it, you're going to see the place where the water used to be. Then when we finish it, we go on the other side, and hopefully the bus is going to wait for us on the other side, otherwise we'll be starving to death in the middle of the desert. Okay? But take off your sunglasses because it's a little bit dark, and watch out, okay? You are the one who's recording me?
I'm calling my doctor.
Can you hear me? Okay, very good. We're now going to the water tunnel.
Y'all just getting started. Just getting started. No, not if you can fly.
Okay, excuse me.
Actually, we come out at the bottom of the mountain.
Yeah, watch out.
Very careful.
They really need a lot of water, so they drill this way and over here. And they estimate that this water could be enough even to feed 10,000 people, even more. Wow. You know, remember, today we take 2 showers a day, right? In that time, not even 1 shower in a week or in a year. So the water was really used only for drinking, maybe some other purpose, maybe for ritual immersion, and that's all. Yeah. So they really needed only water for drinking. And if they had grain and they had water, they could stand the siege. Okay, let's go out.
Was the tunnel this big? I mean, this tall?
Yes.
That's where they finally found water?
Hi, lady. Sarah, how you doing, Sarah? Is he a good donkey? If it will be clean, there will be much more water over here.
You ready to go?
I don't think so. But that was the reason that they did it.
We have many more people.
I think maybe we should let everybody drink before we read the scripture. What do you think?
I don't know. From what I've been hearing, you better read it.
I drank the wrong way.
Put up a clear view.
This is for fact the place, right? Megiddo is Megiddo. I mean, there's no other Megiddo. Mount Carmel is Mount Carmel, okay? This spring of water is the same place. Sometimes on the tour you're going to be in churches and you ask me, is the place where I say tradition, okay? Exactly where it was, we don't know. Here we can say for sure the spring comes from the mountain. Can you see? This is the place.
Brought down the people into the water, and the Lord said unto Gideon, everyone that lappeth of the water with his tongue, the dog lappeth, him shalt thou set by himself. Likewise everyone that boweth down upon his knees to drink. And the number of them that lapped, putting their hand to their mouth, were 300 men, but all the rest of the people bowed down upon their knees to drink water.
Yes.
Show us, sister. Show us how you do it.
Go down. Go down.
Yeah, we want to see him. This way you can watch for people coming. If your head's down the water like a dog, then somebody could come up behind you and you wouldn't see them, right?
Do it again, Dale.
We're recording this.
Yeah, that's what he said.
I'm going to read it one more time to you. So he brought down the people into the water, and the Lord said unto Gideon, everyone that lappeth of the water with his tongue as a dog lappeth, him shalt thou set by himself. Likewise, everyone that boweth down upon his knees to drink. Now this is a separation. He's putting the ones that bow down to drink to one side, the ones that get down and lap like a dog to the other side. And the number of them that lapped, putting their hand to their mouth, were 300 men. But all the rest of the people bowed down upon their knees to drink. Now this is a separation. He's putting the ones that bow down to drink to one side, the ones that get down and lap like a dog to the other side. And the number of them that lapped, putting their hand to their mouth, were 300 men. But all the rest of the people bowed down upon their knees to drink water.
So they pulled their
Okay, I was
hands
just
up and
supposed to
lapped.
stick
They
down
pulled
like
their hands
this.
up. There were some that put their face in. This is a misconception. Some put their face in, some pulled the water in them if you got your face down in the water.
Somebody explain that to me. It might have been Daddy.
You know, when you speak about the Bible, right, and I mentioned before today that the Bible is really past, it's present, and the future, right? In 1936, we got a fellow that came here from England, and at that time there were a lot of troubles between the local Arabs and the Jewish settlers that were settling over here. And you know, the Jewish people did not know how to fight. So this young English officer was a lieutenant, came to one of the villages over here, and he told the men, I'm going to show you how you fight, and with small number you can defeat a big army. So they looked at him, and he was like what we call in Hebrew, quart of chicken, you know. Small men, very little, and they said these were big farmers. This man does not know how to fight. I mean, you make wind and he's blown away. So he said, who would like to join me? And about 20 men said, I will come with you. And he started to march them from one of the settlements, and they walked and walked and walked. And it was 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock at night and 10 o'clock and 11 and 12. And one of the farmers came to him and said, Lieutenant, you know, you might be in a good physical shape, but we can't stay with you. He said, I was watching what you said before. And then after a while, he gave them a rest. And he took the Bible and read the story about Gideon. And he said, you see, if God is going to be with you, with a small army, you can defeat a huge army. So they listened to him. and then he divided them into two groups. They came to the headquarters of this terrorist place. He told them, few of you will stand on this side, and in a moment, I will tell you what time, you start to make noise and start to shoot to the air. And the rest of the 17 and he himself were waiting on the other side. And when he said they are going to get up in the middle of the night, they will be confused. They start to run into the ambush, and then we are going to shoot at them. And it happened exactly as he told them. You know, the same story that Gideon did with the 300 men that have the jars and the fire. So it was such a big success, and from that time on everyone believed in me and said, you know, this man must know what he's doing. After 1.5 years, this is now 1938, the British were not very happy what this young officer who was a British man did. And he always used to go, and before each battle he used to open the Bible and read the people, and they said, you don't fit to our purpose. You know, England was a colonial empire. Send him back to London. But in September 1939, you know, the big war started, right? Hitler invaded to Poland. So the British needed good officers, called Wingate back into service. But then he was already a captain, and sent him to fight in Ethiopia. I don't know if you know, but Ethiopia was taken by a fellow who was the head of Italy, and his name was called Mussolini. You probably heard the name. And there was a big army of about 180,000 Italian troops in Ethiopia and Somali. You know, the same Somali that you got involved a couple of years ago. And in about a couple of months of fighting, they managed to clean the whole Ethiopia and Somali and all the other territories from the Italian army with a small British army. The British had about maybe 12,000 men, the Italian had 180. So Churchill, who was the Prime Minister of England, was very much impressed by him. He was promoted quickly to brigadier and then a general. And he told him, Wingate, I'd like to send you to another mission. This was a time when the Japanese invaded to Burma. You know, in the Second World War, they took Burma. Maybe some of you saw a movie called The Bridge on the River Kwai. It was a very famous movie done. But before that, he took Wingate with him to meet with the President of the United States, whose name was called FDR, you know, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And they met in Quebec, and of course, each one brought his own general. So when Roosevelt saw the man, he said, with these generals, we can win any battle. And then Wingate was sent to Burma. When he came there to the headquarters, people asked him, what do you carry with him? And he said, I only have the Bible with me. So they say, how do you fight with the Bible? He said, I will show you. In a very short time, he organized the British army in small units, sent them in gliders behind the Japanese lines. They landed in parachutes or in the gliders on the grounds, and they did destroy junction of a railroad, bridges, a water supply, headquarters, and he did such a good job, so the whole Japanese army started to be scared and they started to run away. In the end of 1944, he was flying on a little plane. It was a DC-3, you know, one of the Second World War carriers of troops, and it got into a very heavy storm. You know, you have there very heavy typhoon storms. The plane got moved off the way and crashed into a mountain. They found the remains of his body, and next to his body they found a little Bible which was covered by leather. In the War of 48, which was now 4 years afterwards, his widow that lived in England came here, and she told the head of this young state, Ben-Gurion, I brought you some help. So he asked her, what did you bring? He said, I have a little bag, and I need an airplane to fly me over a settlement which was named after Wingate. So the little plane flew over. It was a little tiny plane. When they came there, she dropped the parachute, and the people were very much surprised to see, you know, a little package coming down. They opened it, and in the Bible, in the package, they found a little Bible with a leather cover, which was Wingate's Bible from the Second World War. And she wrote a little letter, and she said, with the Spirit of the Lord, you can win any battle. So this is Charles Ord Wingate, who turned to be a general of the British Army, fighting with the Bible. Any one of you has an interest can read about him. The man was brought by his father, who was a missionary in India. And he said always, thanks to my father, I got the spirit and the understanding of the book. So if you like to have a proof of the 20th century, we live now in a modern time, how this event that happened about almost 3,300 years ago was translated and being used on recent days. So that's a story I felt like I would like to show you this place, the Spring of Wingate. That's Mount Gilboa.
Yeah.
In 1948, his widow gave it to Ben Gurion.
Yes, no, she did not give it to Ben Gurion. She came in, she got a little plane, and she dropped on one of settlement. It was under siege by the Arabs. And people were very much impressed when they saw the Bible and a little note that said, with the Spirit of the Lord, you can win any battle.
Who recovered the Bible, do you know?
It was found after the plane did crash on the ground.
I mean, after she dropped it out?
It was found by the defenders of the settlement.
Okay. Is it still
By the way, the Bible today is being kept in the Museum of the Israeli Army.
It is?
It's a little Bible in English and
is that right?
Yes, the whole Bible is there. Okay, folks, I promised the lady over here, because she kept the garden open for us. It's 3 o'clock, it was supposed to be closed. So let's start to move back to the bus. And we are going now from here to Mount Tabor.
Verse 26, it says, and in the 6th month, the angel Gabriel was sent from God unto a city of Galilee named Nazareth, to a virgin espoused to a man, whose name was Joseph, of the house of David, and the virgin's name was Mary. And the angel came in unto her and said, Hail, thou that art highly favored, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women. And when she saw him, she was troubled at his saying, and cast in her mind what manner of salutation this should be. And the angel said unto her, Fear not, Mary, for thou hast found favor with God. And behold, thou shalt conceive in thy womb, and bring forth a son, and shall call his name Jesus. And he shall be great, and shall be called the Son of the Highest, and the Lord God shall give unto him the throne of his father David. And he shall reign over the house of Jacob forever, and of his kingdom there shall be no end. Oh, I know what it is. Mustard seed.
You shouldn't tell him. You open the palm of your hand.
So I can move them out now.
I guess so. See that tower over there? Yeah. Oh, this is mustard seeds. Yes, more. Let me have one that ain't been opened. This is a mustard seed.
That one that hadn't been opened.
It's after the rain, so a lot of the seeds were washed away.
The faith of a grain of mustard.
You're like beggars. Look on these Americans.
Over here begging, huh? Lord have mercy.
Look how much she gave Richard.
We got some spare. We got some spare. We got some
He'd get a lot of stomach problems. The Bible said take a little wine for your stomach's sake.
Look at Daryl. Hey, Daryl, you run a little short, ain't you?
The blessing for Friday speaks about, God created for 6 days, right? And on the seventh one he rested. And that's why on the seventh day, and it's written in the Ten Commandments, you're not supposed to do any work. And it comes in Hebrew this way. יום השישי ויחולו השמיים והארץ וכל צבאם ויכל אלוהים ביום השלישי ויקדש אותו מכל מלאכתו אשר ברא אלוהים לעשות. 6 days he worked, created, and on the seventh one he rested. This is the beginning. And then you say the second blessing, which is the blessing for the wine. Now you can take a glass of wine, put it in your hands. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם בורא פרי הגפן. Bless you, God of the universe, that create the fruit of the grapes. And then you lift the glass, drinking and say Amen. Bless you, the God of the universe, that created the fruit of the grape. Lift the glass and say Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Okay. Now I will pass the microphone to the very famous pastor from Georgia.
Hey, if you'll all bow your heads, we'll pray. Precious Heavenly Father, we thank you for an opportunity to observe this wonderful tradition of your people. And Father, we ask that you allow us to observe another tradition as your people also, and that is to ask you to bless this food, God, the nourishments of the bodies of each and every person that's here, that your Spirit might be present with us, Lord, that it might bring us strength to be an example to all those that observe us in our life. In the wonderful name of Jesus Christ we pray. Amen.
Amen.
How you doing, Bob?
They have another buffet on the other side, so you have to go to the other side.
fight was all right. That was enough.
I'm sorry. No, I want to keep you.
Don't stand up right now, Kevin.
Huh?
Hey, got the salmon. Get it right.
Which one's the salmon? What? What?
Salmon from that?
Sure?
Yep. That's what Mom said.
Sweet flakes. Canola.
Procedure. Something very important, whenever we walk on a steep slope like this, watch out. I suggest never go with your hands in the pockets. Because if you fall down, it's better, to have a hand free than to break a leg. You know, legs are very important because without legs it's very hard to ride the bicycles. So remember, it's very, very important. If we do things properly, we can get out of the tour with a big smile. Remember, strange terrain, it's better, to do it a little bit slow, but to do it properly. Now, I would like to take the opportunity to point on some place, and again, the visibility is not the best one. I do hope that it's going to bear on the fog later on in the day. We're going to have a better visibility, but the lake here, fed by the Jordan River, the Jordan comes from the high mountain, and you're going to see today when it comes into the lake. It's not a very big lake. It's about maybe 180 feet deep in this point where the boat is. Around the lake you have the mountain. On one side the mountain of the Lower Galilee. The Galilee is built on two different levels. Upper Galilee, 3,500 feet. Lower Galilee, 1,700 feet. Nazareth, Mount Tabor are some of the highest points in the Lower Galilee, and unfortunately it's not very good visibility, so you can't see it. Notice the mountainside, very little vegetation. The reason for that is that it was cut. Mainly in the last 200 years, people came, cut all the trees. You remember the beautiful oak that we saw near the big stone before we got yesterday to Megiddo. So it was covered by very beautiful oaks and they were all cut. If you look this way, you might be able to see in the fog the city of Tiberias, established probably in the time of Jesus, in the time of the emperor called Tiberius Caesar, right? You remember we mentioned the story, Pontius Pilate. He was a procurator, governor in the time of Tiberius Caesar, city of Tiberias. The beautiful valley over here, Valley of Gennesaret, and that the Bible speaks always about Sea of Gennesaret, the Valley of Gennesaret. The Beatitude is over here, and along the lake there are many sites. I mean, many of the events, taking the boat ride, speaking to his followers, happened over here. So when you really stay near the Galilee, you're going to probably get a much better understanding on what the Bible really speaks about, the ministry that was done over here. The poor Galileans, right? The 5,000 or 4,000 that came to Jesus with maybe 2 fish or a couple of fish, and that was supposed to feed, you know, a big crowd. But the miracles happened over here, and they were very clear and very beautiful. And I'd like to pass the microphone to the man from Georgia.
You have to be spiritual to see this microphone.
If you don't see it, you have to go to the eye doctor.
Like down there?
What I'd like to do is I'd like to just take a minute and read all of chapter 5 in the book of Matthew. And this is the Sermon on the Mount that is believed that was preached here. I'd like you to do something. While I read this, it's hard to get the reality of what we're doing to really dawn on you. I've been over here about 6 or 7 times. Been to this place right here. As a matter of fact, this is the building that you see on the front of one of the tracks that we have called the Crucified Way. Dad is sitting on a rock. I took the picture myself. He's sitting on a rock and he's looking in his Bible. And a lot of you probably remember that picture, but this is where it was taken. It's hard to get the reality of what took place here unless you really slow your thoughts down and you slow your spirit down a little bit and you consider where we're sitting. And as I read this, what I'd like for you to do is that the Bible speaks of meditating on the laws of God. What I'd like for you to do is, as I read, maybe just kind of close your eyes and just get yourself a mental picture of maybe 4,000 or 5,000 people, which means that they were not only along this mountainside, but I have a personal feeling that I've preached to that many people before, and I believe they were probably all along here, all the way down toward the sea, and he probably was maybe even there at the sea, and at times may have even pushed out in the waters. We was talking this morning down by the Sea of Galilee because the water carries sound so well. Them being in a sloping area, it was like a natural amphitheater. And we don't know that for sure, but I do know that if you had 4,000 or 5,000 people out here, that would be a lot of people. And they would be spread completely out across this mountainside and down through the valley here. I'd just like for maybe you to close your eyes and just imagine. The Bible says the poor heard him gladly. Just imagine that the poor people had come from all around the little neighboring towns and villages here and came to see this man that was born in Nazareth. That was a man just like everybody else, but yet that was a man that was sent from God, not only sent from God, but that was God himself enrobed in human flesh, and that came here to bring life to the people. The book of Matthew, lost my reference. The book of Matthew in chapter 5. And seeing the multitudes, he went up into a mountain, and when he was set, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are they which do hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are ye when men shall revile you and persecute you, and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. Rejoice and be exceeding glad, for great is your reward in heaven. For so persecuted they the prophets which were before you. Ye are the salt of the earth. But if the salt have lost its savor, wherewith shall it be salted? It is thenceforth good for nothing, but to be cast out and to be trodden under foot of men. Ye are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. Neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and it giveth light unto all that are in the house. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. You know, it says at the beginning here that Jesus went up into the mountain, and on this particular event, it would be a good possibility that maybe he was up here and the people spread out, because I would imagine somebody on the count of 3 to say hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
That's good. Now let's do it on the count of 3. Obedience is better than sacrifice. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Hallelujah! I heard it echo off the water.
Man, kind.
Mr. Frank. Mr. Frank.
Couple more songs like that.
That's good, wasn't it, Daryl? Boy, he was a powerful preacher.